Leonardo da Vinci, Chapter 11, at the court of Francis I. The French court was a childish world. The parties the great nobles gave for each other were something like children's parties, too. Francis I loved magnificent shows and glittering clothes and all the gaiety he could provide. Leonardo's first mark in France was made at a gathering of this sort in October 1517. The king had taken his court to visit his sister Margaret de Valois at her castle Argenton. There was the usual tourney, followed by a play, which was rather like what we call a pageant. It was during the play that Leonardo's talents proved to be so useful. In one scene of the play, an old hermit came and knelt down before the king and made an elegant, flattering speech. The king had been sent to the world, he said, to save it from a savage lion. As he came to the part about the savage beast, a lion walked in the door and marched down toward the king. Though everyone knew the beast was mechanical, it looked so fierce and snarling that a few silly women screamed. But the king played his part as he was told to do. The hermit gave him a magic wand, with which he struck the beast, whereupon the lion reared up, his breast split open and disclosed a turquoise-blue cavity, the color of the French arms. From it fell white lilies, the flowers of France, at the king's feet. Leonardo often repeated the general idea of his triumph, and he did this at Argenton the next evening. This time, just after dinner, a knight dressed all in gold armor suddenly appeared in the banqueting hall, carrying in front of him a great golden heart. When he put it down before the king, it too opened. The cavity was golden, and there came out from it, not flowers this time, but a strange symbolic figure standing on a globe. Half of the figure was a young, vigorous knight, the other half an old, sorrowful man. What was the meaning of this allegory? The guests whispered to each other in wonder. Leonardo must have explained to them as he did in his notebook. Pleasure and pain are represented as twins, since there never is one without the other, and as if they were united back to back, since they are contrary to each other. Clay, gold. If you choose pleasure, know that he has behind him one who will deal you tribulation and repentance. It may seem to us that this was a queer way to cheer people up at a party, but the courtiers at Argenton took it to heart. The king, for all his wild pursuits of pleasure, was particularly fond of Leonardo in this mood. Besides, he was very much impressed with his painter's knowledge. For the rest of his life, he insisted that Leonardo was not only the most learned man he ever met in sculpture, painting, and architecture, but a very great philosopher as well. Francis I treated the old man with courtesy and generosity. He made him a splendid allowance, and also supported Francesco, Melzi, and Soleil. Francis's favorite palace was Amboise on the Loire River. Because he spent so much time at Amboise, he settled Leonardo there. It was to be the painter's last move, and never had he lived in a more congenial place. Francis gave him, for his own home, the Villa of Clos. This was a little chateau hidden away in trees, but with a splendid view of the green countryside. Leonardo was failing. Though he was only 64, an Italian who came to visit him at Amboise thought he must be well over 70. This Italian was a young man, traveling as a secretary with a cardinal. He was fascinated as Leonardo talked to the cardinal and eagerly showed him some of the writings and illustrations that he kept in chests scattered about the chateau. Leonardo told him he had dissected more than 30 corpses in his life, and he exhibited his drawings of anatomical studies. The young secretary looked with awe at all the hundreds of books packed away, still unpublished. If they come to light, they will be valuable and very delightful, he wrote later. At about this time, Leonardo had a stroke that crippled his right hand so badly that he couldn't use it to paint with. People took it for granted that he was finished as an artist. He might still plan pictures and tell his pupils how to fill them in, they thought, but that was all. They forgot or never knew that Leonardo was one of those rare people who are called ambidextrous. He could use his left hand as well as his right. Therefore, though he no longer painted entire pictures by himself, he was still capable of blocking out the drawing and painting the important bits of the picture afterwards. In that way, no doubt, he painted his last great work, St. John the Baptist. Francis I was so fond of talking to Leonardo that whenever he was in residence at Amboise, he would come to Clout every day. There he would sit and talk and talk. He had magnificent plans, and though he had a way of forgetting all about them in pursuit of some new idea, it gave Leonardo pleasure to pretend that these projects would someday come true. Francis wanted to pull down his castle and build a new and better one. So Leonardo drew up the pattern for it and seems to have hoped that it would be built. He traveled around with the king. During this time, he invented transportable or prefabricated houses. He persuaded Francis to consider a canal system that would unite some of the big cities of France. Again, he dreamed of draining marshes and making good soil out of useless swamp. The last great festivities that Leonardo was ever to assist in took place in May 1518. Two occasions were being celebrated: the baptism of Dauphin, the son of Francis I, and the wedding of young Lorenzo de' Medici to a French princess. This time there was a tourney that lasted a whole week. Then the castle square was disguised with painted scenery of towers and walls so that it looked like a fortified city. One of the highlights was a mock bombardment. Wooden cannon shot enormous balls across the scene. The cannonballs bounced about merrily because they were hollow and harmless. Francis led the attack on the city, urging his knights to follow bravely. From within the mock fortress came the besieged garrison. There was a lifelike fight in the square during which several people were actually killed in the excitement. One social occasion followed another. Leonardo remembered the success of his blue canvas sky in the castle at Milan and built one like it, with planets moving around the edge and the sun and the moon above, as nobody there had ever seen it before. The French exclaimed at this wonder. That winter was a hard, cold one, and Leonardo missed the Italian sun. A long time before his death, he knew what was happening. The old urge to put down on record all that he knew had began to ebb. On April 23rd, 1519, he sent for a notary and made his will. Leonardo had always been precise and businesslike when he wanted to be. He was very calm and efficient about this will. To his brothers in Florence, in spite of the quarrels they had had, he left the money he had in that city and property he had acquired in Fiesole. To Francesco Melzi, who was always there at his bedside, faithful to the last, he bequeathed all his books and paintings and instruments, as well as the money he had in the house, and that still due to him from the king. All his clothing, too, went to Melzi. Clothing was very valuable, except for one cloak lined with fur and a cap to go with it, which he gave to his serving woman. Half his Milanese vineyard and some money due to him from the allowance made by Louis II went to a servant, and the other half of the vineyard to Soleil, who had already built a house and was living there. For witnesses, Leonardo had 5 priests of the neighborhood. He had never pretended to be a religious man, but now, as many people do, he thought of the meaning of death, and he turned to God. In his old businesslike manner, after he had made his confession, he planned his burial ceremonies. They were to include so many masses, so many low, and 10 pounds of thick wax candles. 60 poor people, each carrying a torch, were to walk behind his coffin from Clos to Amboise, where he was to be buried. It wouldn't take long to make this walk, even slowly, said Leonardo, and the torches would not be used up. Afterwards, the torches could be distributed among the 4 churches of the hamlet. Though he was so careful about the little matter of the torches, Leonardo made no mention or design of a memorial stone for his grave. Just before the end, he was overcome with sorrow at the thought of all the tasks he had left undone, and all the paintings that should have been better. He had not published anything, not a thing. At the thought of all this waste, the tears ran down his cheeks. Melzi could not comfort him. At last, on May 2nd, 1519, the end came to Leonardo da Vinci at the age of 67. He died convinced that he had accomplished nothing.